All right, welcome everyone back to the Vibrant Flow podcast. Today I'm talking to Claudia Phillips. She is a certified sex, love, and relationship coach whose mission is to help heal the great divide that exists between men and women on this planet, fall back in love with one another, and enter into and thrive in union. Yes, we are here for that. She and her husband work with women all over the world to heal their relationship with the masculine and attracting lasting ecstatic union with their beloved. And if I correctly remember, your Instagram account name is Ecstatically Ever After. Isn't that right?
That is correct. Yes.
I love that name, first of all. And I want you to tell us first why that name, and then you can
Yes.
go on like what led you to this work and all of your personal biggest aha moments. I'm sure we can't fit them all into this episode, but just, some of the key points.
I love that question. Nobody's ever actually asked me that before, which is really fun. It's fun to answer this question because it's, kind of a new one for me. But ecstatically ever after, I think I'm just an ecstasy junkie. Like, I know that may sound weird, but like,
No, I get it. I get it.
I had my like wild times when I was in my 20s. I'm not gonna lie. I was a little bit, I wouldn't like say I was like hardcore like drugs or anything like that, but like I did do a lot of like shamanic medicine work at that time, and there was this desire I think we all have as women to experience ecstasy in our bodies and our systems. And so I'm sort of out of that world at this point. I'm completely out of this world that's at that point, but like it was something that I was able to learn how to tap into within my own being. And I think we have that as women. We have this capacity to activate our biochemistry in a way that, allows for the oxytocin and the serotonin and the dopamine to just flow. And we have this capacity through embodiment and our union with our beloved and the divine to create ecstasy in our bodies. And that's something that is so deeply a part of the work that I do, because I'm not somebody who's ever just like to kind of settle for like feeling okay. Like I really want to feel good. I want to feel ecstatic. I want to feel alive. I want to feel fully here in my body, feeling incredible. And like, of course, I don't always hit that mark, but that's always my desire. Like that's, and I think there can be a little bit of a, oh, why are you chasing that? You shouldn't be chasing that. Like, oh, you should just feel like your feelings don't matter. And I think that's something that we as women have been told a lot. And yet we're built this way. We're built to tap into these ecstatic states of consciousness that through our bodies and through our embodiment. And so that's why this name came from my brand a number of years ago, because it's always been such a deep practice for me, is to find these ecstatic states of being within myself.
I love that. And it's just, combining that with like union, marriage, and all of that. It's just, I'm so on board for that. But first I want to ask, like, how do you define ecstasy? Because it's interesting, because I've had to study the word for completely different purposes as a linguist and as a philologist, and historically with different traditions and all of that. And I've noticed that there are very different traditions, different definitions, and focus points for that. So what does ecstasy mean for you?
Yeah, I mean, I love that question. Ecstasy to me feels almost like, it almost feels like a trance-like state. It's something that's transcendental. It's something that is beyond our normal state of consciousness. It's something that it's the ecstasies. It's like that. I think it's a Greek word.
Yeah.
It's the being filled with something beyond ourselves, like there's something very transcendental about it. And yet in the body, like the feminine body, it feels very imminent too. It's very embodied. It's not so up and out, at least for me. And I think for us as women, it's something that we experience when we go in.
Right.
So I would say it's beyond our normal human state of consciousness where we're just kind of going about our day, doing our thing. It's something deeper, it's something richer, it's something fuller, it's something that like is almost trance-like in nature, and yet it's totally here, it's totally imminent, it's totally
Right.
embodied.
Right.
That's for
Right.
me, that feels like it. And it's almost like I'm being filled with something beyond my normal human self,
Right.
my normal human way of thinking, my normal human way of doing. I'm being I mean, it for me, it's like a feeling of being penetrated by the divine.
Right. Right. Yeah, makes total sense. And comparing this to like the normal day to day, because I would say that in many ways we go about our days in a certain type of trance, which is not the type that you're
Right.
talking about. It's like this, just, go about your day, not even being present, just, do the things and the routines, and you're just on autopilot, right? And that's what
Yes.
people experience, and that is the complete opposite of feeling ecstasy or even sometimes joy, because so many
Yes.
women are so used to just going about their day like blah blah blah. It's like, this autopilot, automatic programming. It, goes on when you wake up and you go to bed, and it's just, repeat, repeat, repeat. And
Yes.
you come to this realization, especially if you're married and in that relationship, you come to this realization that this is what's happening. This is like,
Yes.
I'm not even sure if I'm able to enjoy any of this. Like, I'm not even present. I'm just numbed out. I'm just doing all the things and
Yes.
living the normal life, whatever that is. Um, what would you say to a woman who, let's say she comes to you and she's like, I'm curious about this thing that you're talking about, but gosh, like my life is just numbed out. I'm
Mm,
just so used to this program. I'm not even sure what's happening, but every time I wake up, it's just the same old, every day,
mm,
repeat, repeat.
mm. I love that question. Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. So many of us have been conditioned to just live our lives day to day with kind of a sense of the mundane without ever really tapping into these ecstatic states of consciousness. And I think there's a number of reasons for that. And we can kind of jump into a couple of those, John, if that's okay. Is like, I think women have been conditioned not to feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We have been conditioned to believe that our feelings are bad or wrong or somehow dangerous. They can be overwhelming. Like, as you know, like women, I think in our essential nature, we feel things deeply, right? Our lived experience, our felt sense is very much feelings based. It's very somatic. I believe this is how we are born, and we are conditioned out of it. And so, and there's a lot of reasons for that. There's the cultural thing around, women being considered hysterical, or,
Mm-hmm.
if
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you if you're feeling a lot, if you have big emotion,
Yes.
we can also use that. The contrast of ecstasy is, of course, agony. And when we project our agony onto another person, often our male partners or our husbands, then I think that emotionalism, our big emotions as women can be, they can be toxic, right? They can be in shadow. They can be used as a weapon against the masculine, against the person that we're supposed to love the most.
Mm.
And I think men internalize that. They take it on and they see it as, wow, I've failed, right? She's in agony.
Mm. Yeah.
That means something about me.
Yeah.
Therefore, I'm going to respond by shaming this, or I'm going to respond by shutting this down, or I'm going to respond by saying that women are hysterical or whatever. So there's a lot of reasons for it. Also, just I think emotions are not fully understood. I think emotional intelligence is just a conversation that we're really only starting to have in the last couple of decades. It's not something that has been recognized as something real until very recently, right? And so there's a lot of reasons. Like, we're supposed to be up here, we're supposed to be in our heads, we're supposed to be thinking, we're supposed to be very rational. And there's nothing wrong with using that part of our brains, right? Using our rational minds, but being able to feel, it's like, it's such a gift. And it's such a gift that we have as women, is like feeling things, right? And so for that woman, I would say your first step is just to begin to feel. It's just to begin to like feel sensation in your body without judgment. Like being able to just notice, being able to track, taking 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, to just being like, wow, what am I actually feeling inside my body right now? Am I feeling, and if it's just numbness, like feeling that, like giving space to like feel your numbness. Like, what does numbness feel like inside of my body? Okay, it feels kind of like, I don't feel any sensation. Okay, well, that's a start, right? To be able to be like, oh, I'm not feeling anything. Well, that's actually feeling something, because you're sensing the numbness. So once we can kind of begin to feel, so that's a big part of it, I think, is just being able to slowly build up the capacity to feel. And then we want to also, with that, we want to start creating like safety in our system. We want to start feeling safe. We want to start going in. We want to start feeling like, wow, I'm in my body. I'm not up here. It's safe to be in here. It's safe to just feel my feet on the ground. It's safe to just feel like my hips sitting on the chair. It's safe to just feel that, and like holding that space of safety inside of our systems. And so we can begin to feel, and we can begin to melt the layers and layers and layers of numbness, so we can, and maybe we don't shoot for like ecstasy immediately. Maybe we shoot for like just being able to feel, and then build up our capacity to feel more and more and more and more over time. So, I always have a very kind of trauma informed approach to this, because I used to go big or go home. Like, I would be like, yeah, I'm going to take the plant medicine and go for the big ecstatic experience. But it was too much. Right. And so I really love
the system,
it. Shocks
right?
the system. It's too much too soon. And so I love to support women in just feeling safe, first of all, creating that safe container for them to actually feel. And then slowly sensing, slowly feeling the felt sense at the somatic level, to just be able to, okay, wow, I'm feeling some contraction in my belly. Okay, I'm feeling some tightness in my heart. Okay, I'm feeling a little tension in my shoulders. I'm feeling a little tightness in my jaw. And like with that, we can begin to sense, and we can begin to unwind, and we can begin to be here, and we can begin to feel. And then from there, it's like, where do I want to go from here? And that can be a process of moving through stuff, tension and layers and numbness and tightness and stuckness and all the things. But like, there is a part of you that is already accessible, like the part of you that can already access ecstasy. And there's probably just layers sitting on top of that that are not letting you fully do that.
Right. Exactly. So every woman has the capacity to feel more.
Yes.
And that's something I always want to say to my ladies, that it doesn't matter if all you feel right now is pain, because that was me for years. And just, sometimes it can bring a lot of like despair, and just feeling like, well, if this is what it's always been like, so it's not going to change. And you just take it for what it is. And that's not the truth. That's not the truth of the matter. At least our brain, our bodies, our nervous systems are very much capable of building new neural pathways, building all of that, all the sensations. We can experience something that we've never experienced, in decades or ever in our lives. So there's hope for everyone, right?
Yeah, there really
Yeah.
is. And it all comes back to like just taking that one step, slowly, starting to feel and just remembering it's safe to feel. Even if there is pain right now, it's
Mm.
like it's safe to feel even the pain.
Yeah, that is it. So one of the things that I learned in my healing journey is that what kept me stuck was the story and the fear I attached to the sensation. So if there
Yes.
was pain present, oh my gosh, like I'm now panicking about the pain. I'm
Mm,
attaching all these stories about it, like, okay, this is going to be the rest of my life.
yes.
And that fear loop is what keeps you in pain. It's not actually the sensation itself, but it is the perception of it and
That's
how you
right.
sort
That's
of
right.
sort of latch onto it and grip it, and then you're like, oh, like I have this like analogy of you being on a roller coaster, and then you grip it so hard you're sitting in the cart and and just gripping super hard, squeezing your eyes tight shut, and then the ride is over. You don't even realize it. You're on to the second ride. You're on to the third ride. You're on to the fourth
Yes.
ride. And that's what it
Yes.
is.
Wow. Yeah, that's quite the analogy. I think that's how a lot of people are living life.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. Exactly. They're not realizing that they can hop off. Right. Hey, I'm
Yes.
I'm really
Or they,
curious. Oh, go ahead.
yes. Oh, like, well, I think part of my like ecstasy chasing when I was younger was like, I loved roller coasters and I was always like chasing that sensation of like high, right? But, if it feels like it's just too much, if it feels like it's overwhelming, like, again, decoupling from the meaning that we're making in our minds, the story, like you said, like seeing if we can just detach from that and just being with the sensation and like trusting that it's safe. The sensation is not going to kill you.
Yeah.
The sensation doesn't mean anything. It's just sensation moving through your body. And that's all it is. And if we can just detach from the story and just feel, that's where the emotional alchemy takes place. And that's where we can begin to shift and we can begin to feel all like our way all the way through, and we can resolve whatever pattern is there.
Exactly. Exactly. So I'm really curious about, so you talk about like king
Yes.
energy and union and all of this stuff that I'm so like on board with. Let's
Yes.
say my listener is like, oh yeah, I am ready to attract a king into my life. Where do we start? Like what is our responsibility in that picture? Let's say I'm a
Yes.
woman, I'm single, I'm so ready to meet a king. And I want this beautiful union that's filled with ecstasy. What is my responsibility in this picture?
Yeah. So I feel like so often we want to jump to the action, like the doing of what do I do, or what do I say, or what do I put on my profile, or whatever. These things are important, but they're much less important than like us doing the emotional alchemy work first and creating that, what I call, it's almost like we want to create that template within our own body mind, within our own system to align with that. So the work that I do with women is, there's a lot around doing like the inner piece, like the inner work first, and then we move to the outer work. So we really create like almost like a blueprint inside of your own system, inside of your own heart, inside of your own body, to be able to receive that. And so there's a few different pieces within that I'd be happy to share with you. But what I would just advise people, or what I would really suggest, is not just jumping immediately into the doing, and just let like, let there be a little bit of a journey, like a preparation journey, even before you throw your, you start going out there and meeting all these men and start
Right.
looking for your king. Like there's a
Right.
little bit of a preparatory process.
Yeah.
And for me, and like the work that I do with my clients, it's like that a lot of that is, we have to look at our own shadow, and we have to see how it is that we have been relating to men and masculine energy, like what stuff we're holding on to from the past, what wounds, what shadows, what imprints are we holding inside of our systems that come from past relationships, come from childhood, come from past lovers or past, exes or whatever, where we're holding on to a specific type of masculine energy of how we relate to men. I mean, so many of the women come into my work and they're like, Claudia, you're talking about kings, you're talking about good men, you're talking about healthy masculinity. I don't even know what this is.
Mm.
I've never even experienced this. So we want to clear this stuff out. And we do this again through descending into the body, feeling our way through each pattern, bringing love and safety and acceptance to these parts of us, and letting them just gently unwind from the body. And so they can clear and they can create this sort of new, fresh space within our systems to be able to see men in a whole new way. So that's so much of it is just like creating a whole different blueprint around how it is that you relate to men. And women have, I always talk about it in terms of like, there's two shadow types of men that women tend to attract. So it's either like men who are, and I think we see this a little bit more in our culture right now, men who are kind of weak, men who are incompetent, men who are incapable, men who are absent. Many of us had like absent fathers who weren't really present with us. And so often that shows up if we're holding on to that, or if we have some of that conditioning from the past, some of that wounding, we'll meet men often who are not available, men who are not showing up, men who are not present, men who are not willing to like claim or step in and step up and like be there fully for us. Or women will attract men who are more on like the tyrant side of things. So there's like the weakling and the tyrant. This is actually from that book, King Warrior Magician Lover. If you haven't, have you? I'm not sure you've read that.
No, who's the author?
It's I think it's Douglas Gillette, and maybe it's kind of from a Jungian perspective. It's a really great just study of masculine archetypes.
Yeah. All right.
So yeah, but these four archetypes, King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, he talks about the king and how often it's like there's a shadow king that women often attract, which is either like a weakling or a tyrant. So the tyrant is more of the typical, like what we think of as quote unquote toxic masculinity, even though I'm not a huge fan of that term. But it's more of the man who's domineering. He's really controlling. He's jealous. He's possessive. He is maybe, he's just not somebody that you would want to trust. And so often we have one or the other of these two. And the work that I do is a lot around like clearing this out. And so we can attract what I would call like a good king, or like a noble king, or that type of man that's women, a healthy masculine man.
Yeah, exactly. So it starts within, right? Yeah,
that's right.
Totally agree. And that's the responsibility that we have. So let's say that woman is currently attracting either or the weakling, the passive man, or the tyrant.
Yes.
What would you tell her?
Yeah. So what I would take her through, I would guide her through a process of feeling into her body, of like where it is that this pattern is stuck. So what we would do, I would have her like visualize this man or this energy, like this particular type of man she's attracting, or it could be like a man from her past, or it could be her father if she was this way. And I would just have her like emotionally process like what she feels inside of her body. So she's attracting this type of man. It's eliciting a certain sensation, it's eliciting a certain emotion inside of her. So first I would just let her kind of like just totally express anything she needs to say directly to this man. So just let her vent, let her purge, let her just get all of her emotions out. And so that can just begin to move through the body. We're not in this rigid, oh, I have to think perfect, I have to be perfect, I have to, think all the right thoughts. It's like just letting herself kind of vomit up the emotional energy in her body. And then I would take her through like a forgiveness ritual around just letting go, giving anything that she's holding on to from this man, giving it back to him. And then I would just, I would really like invite her to soften her heart and even see, perhaps hold compassion in her heart for this man. Like really feeling into that forgiveness, feeling into that compassion, feeling into perhaps where he has been coming from. Not that she has to keep being in, attracting this type of man in relationship, but it's like that attachment that we create, that bond that keeps us attracting that same type of person. So the more we can forgive, the more that we can even have compassion for this type of person that's been showing up in our life over and over and over again, then we actually create space for something else. And then I would invite her to like visualize like who it is that she wants to attract, like, and then invite her to hold that in her body and let that settle and let herself feel safe to like be with this type of man versus the other.
Yes, exactly. And I think we both want to say that it is possible for all of you listening.
100%, 100% possible.
Because I think that there are a lot of women who are just, in the depths of despair, I guess, when it comes to this, and that they can't change the pattern because it's so deeply rooted from their childhood, for example.
Yes.
And all of that, but it is possible to change
It's so
it.
possible. It really is. It's just, it's hard because so many women want to look externally and be like, oh, there's no good men. All men are toxic. All men are this, all men are that. It's so not true. Like, I believe that most men are good men. Most men are flawed, right? Like nobody's perfect, right? And I think sometimes we can like get into this delusion of being like, oh, I'm going to attract the perfect man and the perfect king and the perfect fairy tale relationship, right? I'm not, I love fairy tales as kind of archetypal journeys, but they're fairy tales, right? They're not reality.
Mm-hmm.
You can draw on them for inspiration, but they're not actually real life. So that's one thing I would advise against is like, even if you have been attracting a certain type of man, what I notice a lot of women, it's like, I've only been attracting this type of relationship, this type of man again and again and again. It's not what I want. And now I'm going to set my standards so high.
Yes. Yeah.
That no mortal male human,
Oh, yeah. I've noticed the same thing. Yeah.
meet this standard. It's like, so there's a sweet spot, right? Of like, we want to attract a king, but we also want to be able to be with his humanity, right? We also want to be able to like with his human self, who is flawed and not perfect, just like you, just like us, right?
Yeah, exactly. We wouldn't want to be with someone who is like looking at us with a magnifying glass to see all our flaws and be like, "You're not perfect. I'm not gonna be with you. You're not
Yeah,
this princess that I read in a story." So
yeah, exactly,
no,
exactly.
I can't do that with men either. And I'm so agree with you with that. Like sometimes I guess it's because we do talk a lot about like this king energy and the
Yes,
fact, masculinity, and we appreciate it so highly, and that is so necessary in this world, absolutely. But then in certain
yes,
like bubbles, it just turns into this fantasy, pretty
yes,
much, like, and then it's easy to sort of like fall into this
yes,
fantasy, imagining like, okay, there's this perfect guy out there, and you're sort of idealizing the whole
yes,
concept of masculinity and manhood, and we can't
yes,
idealize it. That's actually where we go astray, just
Yes.
like with femininity, it's not, I mean, it's not perfect and we know it. And
Yes.
we're flawed humans, and that's where the beauty is. Like you
Yes.
will come into a union with a flawed person, but that is still
Yes.
worthwhile.
Oh, can we talk about this some more?
Yes.
Because
Yes, we can.
I feel like this is one of those topics that I want to write a post about soon, because it's like not being talked about enough. I feel like one of the things that, when, especially when we're like coaches or something, we want to sell the king, right? Like we want to
Yeah.
sell the like
Mm-hmm.
present this like amazing thing. And yes, like that is, I absolutely believe that that is something that we want to do, and definitely a noble endeavor. And what I've noticed is that because we have this idealized notion of king and like what that is, it comes from God. It comes from the divine, like the masculine divine, God the Father, and like the beloved. Like that's really how I relate to it. And that is perfect, right? That is eternal. That is there. That is something we can always fall back into as kind of that perfect masculine template. And yet, I think where women get stuck is that they think that their human man needs to be like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
And
Yes.
they can't accept an actual human man. And so it keeps them in this place where I'm like, oh, I can be in union with God. I can be in union with the masculine. I can be in union with like, with Christ or the king or whatever. But like, I can't actually let myself have a human man because it's not perfect enough. So I think this is just honestly, if you think about it, like attachment theory style, like you're talking about attachment styles, this is just avoidance, like 100%.
Right. Yeah.
We're avoiding
Absolutely.
intimacy. We're avoiding our humanity and his. We're avoiding the reality, the gritty, imperfect, raw, real nature of reality. And it keeps us away from true intimacy. I believe that. And true like human day-to-day relating. So, I forget the book. It's like after the ecstasy, do the dishes or something. Like there's some book that's like that's like that. Is like we can be ecstatic with our partners, with our husbands, with our beloveds, but we can have that union as like the ideal. But then also we have to be able to like come back here and now and like be in our humanity, let him be in his humanity, give him grace. And I think this is something that women have such a hard time with,
Mm.
is giving their man grace,
Wow.
giving men grace. It's like we want him to be perfect. We want him to be daddy. We want, we want him to like be all the things. And yet he's not those things. He's imperfect, just like you. And
Yeah.
I know you're married, so I feel like you probably know what I'm
Oh
talking
yeah.
about.
Oh yes. Absolutely. And it's just like unconsciously what happens is that we're looking for a man who fills all of the categories that the masculine can fill. Like he's a
Yes.
man who is at the same time he's a god, he he's like he's your father, he's your brother, he's your lover, he's all of the boxes, like checking all the
Yes.
boxes, which is not going to happen, okay? And
Yes.
he's not supposed to. Okay,
He's not supposed to.
yeah, that's like, I mean, that's actually idolatry in a way. If we
It
try to
is.
lift him up into a position that he doesn't that doesn't belong to him, and that puts so much tension on the
Mm,
relationship because, like you said, men feel when, like, they really feel that sensation when they let us down or when they perceive
yes.
that they've let us down when we're having whatever is going on, and usually a man does feel like he's letting you down, and I've noticed this so many times with my husband, things
Yes.
that are not even related to him, but he takes it as his responsibility because
Yes.
he has a good heart, and that's his masculinity drives him to feel that, but he also needs to,
Yes.
like, he gets to realize that everything is not on him, And
Yes.
I'm able to hold myself also, and I'm able to
Yes.
feel, and I have that capacity to do that. But oh my gosh, if we put that expectation on a man, you need to be everything to me. Like you just yeah. It's like
Yeah.
literally
Yeah.
imagining like you're saying yes in front of the priest, and you have your
Yes.
vows, you've written out your vows, and you're like, you are going to be everything to me. And if you mess up, oh gosh, you're going to get hell. Just, you know, that
Yeah.
is not, that's a lot to take. And no man is able to handle that. And then, as you said previously, there are lots of ways that they then react, and then we misinterpret and cue all of these communication issues and expectations and whatnot.
Yes. Like, I just want to sing this from the rooftops. Like, let every woman know this, like this exact conversation that we're having, because it's like the shadow side of this work. It really is. And I've seen it a lot with women who have a really hard time attracting a man because they have such high standards for themselves. They have such impossibly high standards for men. And it's like no one is ever good enough. And that's often a direct reflection of her, like never feeling good enough within herself.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I've noticed that when I'm being critical of myself, when I'm going through like really like these, I don't know, waves of self-criticism,
Mm.
that uh, that is when I reflected back to my husband, and I've had to be really intentional about that so that it doesn't happen. That is the
Yes.
moment when I start to see like all of his flaws immediately, and it is just me
Totally.
projecting what's going on underneath everything
100%.
that's yeah. So there's a lot of self-responsibility that we need to be aware of and acknowledge.
Yeah, it's truly like it truly, truly, truly. And again, having like I understand that women, and I totally feel like women should want this, right? Like we want to protect her, we want to provide her, we want to lead her, we want to love her, like all of these things. And that's right, right? Like that's right for you to want these things. But the shadow side of that is not making him responsible for you as if he were like, because I think this is like a father wound that often goes back to early childhood of just like, and we're just looking for that, like that wound to finally be resolved through another person. It's like, if I could just get this man to take care of me, if I could just get this man to be everything that I needed dad to be, but he wasn't, then I would finally feel okay about myself. I would finally feel okay about life. I would feel finally like I could rest. I would be safe. I would be loved. All would be okay. And I've fallen into this too. Like, oh my God, I'm just projecting onto a man to be the fulfillment of all my, childhood daddy issues. And I'm like, no, it's like not, so we have to be able to hold yourself, as we say, we have to be able to kind of reparent these parts of ourselves and allow the divine to reparent us as well, because it's not his job, and it's never meant to be. It was never meant to be.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So lastly,
Yes.
um, let's say now we are in a relationship, we're getting married, and there are, we have these hiccups,
Yes.
and it seems like the relationship, but it feels like there's no polarity in the
Mm.
relationship anymore.
Yes.
And that can be a hard, or if the woman has this language, many women don't even use the terms polarity, whatnot, but let's just say the spark isn't there. That's just like something that most people understand what it means. So first of all, that's a tough situation to be in, because I've been there.
Yes.
But what would you like to say to a woman who is like, this is not what I wanted, or this is
Mm.
just not, it doesn't feel anything close to ecstasy. I want
Yeah.
a union, but
Yeah.
this ain't it. Where do we start?
Ooh, so good. Such a great question. And there's many pieces and layers to this, but I want to keep it simple. And I feel like if there was like one thing that we could do that would give us the most bang for our buck, so to speak, would be to restore respect to your man. I really feel like most of the, like when we fall out of polarity, it's because we're not respecting him. It's not because he's not enough. It's not because he's not masculine enough. It's not because he's not this or that. It's like we've lost sight of the original reason why we chose him
Oh, yeah.
to begin with. It's like remembering that, like, why did you choose this man? Why did you say yes to this man? Why did you say yes in front of, God and in front of your family and friends? Like, why did you say yes to this man? And remembering those reasons as the first place to start in restoring that respect. And then just remembering, wow, this man, I chose him for a good reason. You didn't make a mistake. You chose him for a good reason. You weren't just like, oh, I'm just going to choose. Like, no, you made a choice, and you made a choice for a good reason. And coming and really remembering that and journaling about that and seeing those qualities within him now, because depending on how long you've been together, maybe there's years, or maybe there's decades, or maybe there's months, but we can all remember that that man is still there. That man that you married, he's still there. And there's a reason why you married him. And that reason is usually the ticket to getting back into union, getting back into polarity with him and restoring that respect. And when he feels respected, he rises to the occasion. And then when we trust him more, and then when we respect him, he rises to the occasion and we trust him more. And then that trust and that beautiful interrelational dance begins to happen organically, all through our own respect and remembrance of why this man is our man, like why we chose him, why we decided to devote our lives to him. That's really what it's about.
Oh, that's so important. Oh, it's just so, so, so important. I feel like when you're in that moment, when you don't feel the feelings, right? Let's say you've fallen out of love, or that's what it feels like. It is a choice to see then to really look for the reasons and remember the reasons why you chose this man. And
Yes.
because we can't wait for that, emotional motivation to be like, oh, I feel like respecting him today.
Ooh, yes, that's right.
Yeah. It needs to be a
That's it.
choice, intentional.
Absolutely. And that is the power of feminine influence, is that it doesn't come through us observing something he's doing and being like, okay, now I can check off the boxes that he's earned my respect, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have to let go of that. I think that's a huge thing that women have. It's like he has to prove himself, he has to earn my respect, he has to do this long list of things in order to be worthy of my respect. Well, that's not true, because he's worthy of your respect because he's your husband. He's worthy of your respect because he's your guy.
Oh, yeah.
Like there isn't this condition, like respect has to be given unconditionally. I believe, at least, when we're in courtship, when we're dating, it's a little bit different. There is kind of a, yes, he's showing us, there is almost like I wouldn't say proving, but it's like there's a discernment of like, okay, we're
Yes.
gonna see he can kind of win out, right? But it's not like that in marriage, and that the dynamic has to shift for us to just, he needs to be able to feel safe that we respect him unconditionally, and that he can't just like fall out of our favor just because we're having a moment of, oh, he didn't do enough for me, I'm not going to respect him. That's very conditional love. And, we're always going to have conditional love to some degree, like in relationships. So again, this is not about being perfect, but it's just about remembering like how important respect is for a man. And it's like oxygen, right? And if he doesn't have that, he's going to go a little nutty. He's going to act a little crazy.
Yeah.
It's like, if we don't feel loved, if we don't feel safe, we act a little crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And that's so true. Women feel like, yeah, exactly like you said, he needs to prove himself so that I can respect him. That's how it's
Yes.
working. He's not doing all those things. And then I can just imagine millions of wives bitching about their husbands to their best friends. Like, he's not doing this, he's not doing
Yeah.
that. I can't respect him. He's lost my respect. And it's just, really hard. And I'm not gonna do this until he changes. All of
Yeah.
that.
Oof.
It's just, stories
Yeah,
all the
that's
time.
like the fast lane to divorce.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. And so, as hard as it can be in that moment, realizing your own responsibility. Okay,
Mhm.
I may not feel like respecting him. I may not feel like appreciating him and admiring him, all these things that men crave and yearn for. But the more I'm able to still choose that with
Mm.
intention, it's
Yes,
going to shift everything. It may take a while, but it's going to shift.
it
Like,
will. Yes.
yeah. So for the woman who is like, I don't know, like this is not what I want. See that you do have power. And I love what you said about feminine power. How
Mm.
would you like define feminine power? Just want to ask.
Ooh. You're asking me all the best questions. You're clearly a very good podcaster. Um, Feminine in power. Yeah, that's a really great question. I think about it as like a soft power. It's a power of influence versus impact. It's a power of inspiration versus motivation. It's a power of the muse, that when we embody the essence of muse and we relate to him as king, we choose to see him as king or as, beloved or husband or whatever works for you in terms of that archetype, we have that power of influence to shift the whole dynamic of the relationship. We have this capacity to set and hold the tone of what it is that we would love to experience. So it's not like a power where we go in and we try and make him do something or get him to do better or improve the situation or, get him to man up or anything like that. That will always 100% of the time fail. Unless you want a mother-son dynamic and your husband is on board with that.
Mm-hmm.
But my
Yes.
guess is most of your listeners don't want that, right? We don't want a mother-son dynamic. We want like a husband and wife dynamic, right? We don't want that other thing. So feminine power is soft power, but it is powerful, but it's not a power over, it's like a power with. Have you seen the movie? I'm not sure you might have heard this quote because it's somewhat well known, I think, at this point, but the movie My Big Fat Greek Wedding,
I've
where,
seen it. Yeah.
okay, well, there's a scene where the mother is talking to the daughter before she gets married, and she's like, yes, the man is the head of the household, and the woman is the neck. And so she can turn the relationship in any direction she wants it to go. And she's being a little tongue-in-cheek here. So it's not like he's like a puppet on the string, but like it is this, we have this capacity to set the tone. We have this capacity to make or break a relationship. We actually have more power of influence in a relationship than a man does, like, because it's who we are as women. We're relational beings. It's our sort of our superpower. And when we can tap into this power, this relational power, when we can tap into this muse power, this power of influence, it's like we don't have to worry about what he's doing because we are that powerful. And so it lets him off the hook. It puts the responsibility back on us, which is a lot. It can feel like, wow, this is a lot of responsibility, which a lot of women don't want to take on. And it's not responsibility in the sense that like it's your fault or it's some like burdensome thing. It's just like, no, you have the keys. You have the keys to like say whether your relationship works or whether it doesn't. You have that power. And that's an amazing, amazing gift.
Exactly. Yes. Setting the tone. And just to, clarify, I believe all my listeners do intuitively understand this, but it's not about manipulation or coercing or
Not at all.
forcing. That's a very different texture, very different feeling, very different paradigm.
100%. 100%. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. So this is about a relational dynamic where both parties are thriving. And obviously,
Yes.
if there's forcing, coercing, manipulation, that would not be the case, right? That would be
No,
disrespectful, right?
that's not the type of power. That's not even power. That's something else. That's not true power. That's something else entirely. That's like shadow.
Yeah.
That's like that's us trying to grasp at some sense of power when we're in a really desperate state.
Oh yeah.
But that's not like the natural organic power of influence that we have. It's something else entirely. But the thing is, women don't even, I think we just don't even realize that we have this power. And so we believe we need to push, we need to coerce, we need to manipulate, we have to do, we have to try and get him to do something. It's none of that. It doesn't even, we don't, but the thing is, we don't even have to do that. There's no reason for it because we have this other form of power, which feels a lot better to us. And it actually is much more likely to create the dynamic that we want.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, because it's not a type of thing that we see culturally, societally. We're just, we see these women who are boss babes and just, shouting out instructions that those are the ones that are getting all the praise and the applause. So
Yeah.
That's why we need to have these conversations.
Yeah, exactly. And yet like those women are usually not thriving in love. And those are the women who probably need this work the most.
Yes.
Whether they're ready for it or not, I don't know. But
yeah, that is so true. I could go on and on with you, honestly.
I
I'm
know it's so
really,
fun.
really sad that we need to wrap this up here. Maybe we need to do a round two for this conversation, but these have been just invaluable topics that we've dived into or dove into. And I love to hear, before you go, what do you most cherish about being a woman?
I love that. What I most cherish about being a woman, I love that question. For me, it's like, I think it goes back to that ecstasy piece. I have this capacity to feel. I have this capacity to feel so much. There's such a richness there. There's like a tapestry and texture, and it's such a gift to feel so much. And it can feel a lot like if we're not used to practicing like higher emotional states, it can feel like a lot if you feel a lot and you're feeling despair or you're feeling grief or you're feeling a lot of rage. But like that is just one side. It's like they're two sides of the same coin. It's like we need to be able to embrace our full emotional range. And I feel like for me, that's the biggest gift to being a woman. It's like having that capacity to feel things so deeply. Because if I was walking through this life numb like I used to, I wouldn't want to be here. Like truly.
So good. So good. Claudia, before you go, tell us where we can find you online.
Yes. So probably the best way is I have a Facebook group called the Kingdom of Lavish Love. And if you just go into Facebook and you search that group, it's the Kingdom of Lavish Love. That's probably the best place to I'm probably the most present there, the most active. But my website is ecstaticallyeverafter.com. And I have like a little presentation up there on like the type of work I do with women that you can watch and see if it supports you.
Yes. Amazing. And also on Instagram, ecstatically ever after.
Yes,
And
that's
all
right.
the links will be in the show notes for sure. All right. Oh my
Awesome.
gosh, that was so good. Thank you, Claudia, so much for your time. I don't take it for
Thank
granted.
you, Joanna, and you're such an amazing interviewer. Like you're very gifted at this. So
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you so much. It's fun to hear. Even on my period. Woohoo.
even on your period, well done. Yes.